Welcome to the Swass Cast. Swass Cast. Swass Cast. Swass Cast. Swass Cast. The podcast that covers the Swassy side of geek culture. Swass Cast. Swass Cast. Swass Cast. And here's your hosts.
Everybody, welcome to another Super Swass Cast. I'm your host, John Tomino, with my sidekick, Keith Gleason, and we have two special guests, as always.
Tom Franck.
Dave Keymont.
Two very big robo collectors, and Tom, you also appeared on a reality show, right?
I did.
Why don't you tell people that...
I was on Collection Intervention.
Yeah.
And I was asked to appraise the robot collection of Scott Zillner, who runs Robo Toy Fest and is a great guy. And his collection is just sort of all over the place. Tons and tons of stuff. He's kind of like you in that he's an analog collector. He doesn't like to search on eBay. I mean, you don't like to sell stuff on eBay.
Right.
He sells a lot of stuff on eBay. He doesn't look at closed auction prices. He's just out there hunting for stuff.
Yeah.
And it's not like... That gives you sort of like a different idea on education of what stuff is worth. But he just likes collecting stuff. So it wasn't like, wow, there's this holy grail and this holy grail. It's like there was just so much stuff.
Well, what was funny about that show, really quick, it was I was just watching a bunch of those like on YouTube or something. You get into it because you can watch a whole bunch of episodes. You go one to the other to the other. And I'm like, what the hell is this here? I'm like, that's Tom! I started cracking up. And I think I sent you a text.
Yeah,
I was like, oh my God, that's Tom here. And then we have other, and to go on, we have other super robo collector.
Dave Keymont.
And as people might know that we filmed his collection. It's a /Keith Gleason /Monster collection.
Yeah.
But anyways, today we have a very special Swass Cast. We're gonna do the top 3 comic cliffhangers that left an impression on us. Now they might not be the greatest things that changed the face of comics, but when we were reading comics and when we were kids or whatever, that they had an impression on us and that we liked. But before we go into it, our top 3, we got some viewer mail. But as always at Reckless Psychic, we like to do our viewer hate mail. Keith sifts through and he picks the best stuff. So what we do is, and if you send it us, we got a lot of good things. Yeah. Thank you for that. But we don't want it. We don't want it. We want the bad things. All right, this one was from, I think, Anonymous. Yeah. This was an Anonymous. This was from...
the Heroin People blog?
This was, getting a lot of feedback on that. Keith went through, and this was from our Superman Captain Marvel blog, and it said to me, usually these are more or less directed to me. The first mistake about this is that you used the word illogical. It is illogical for Captain Marvel to fly by magic, and yet you believe that some alien comes to this world and can fly under a yellow sun. Stop, look around, and understand there is nothing illogical about fake imaginary stories of imaginary people in comic books. There is no limits because you say so. Everything is illogical in a comic because that's why we read them. Okay, so I think this was mentioned against somebody else, but okay, really quickly, people go on blogs and they try to give you this, Superman can only do this, Captain Marvel can do this, Hulk can do this, whatever. And it's like, comics are not put into that context. If you believe a man can fly and shoot lasers out of his eye, it's like, that's the fantasy of it. But it's just saying like, well, he can do that, but he can't do this. And it's like, well, what are you talking about? If you believe that, and that's when people take these things so seriously, and it's just, that's the truth. I think read comics, have fun with them. When I do these verse blogs, I just get the facts. I put the facts out there, and I just do that.
You're very good at that.
Yeah, and I try to be unbiased, and people go crazy because they have such an emotional attachment to one hero, and they don't want to be a beat in that era. You'll never win because it's like this. It's all fake, anyways. It drives me crazy. All right. Another one, we got one. Here's a quote from posted by Thesman18. Hulk Pawns? What was that one from? I think
from your Hulk vs Superman video.
Yeah, and then it was also, it got by posts right by W. Barkhole's Dorks. Well, that's right. That's what we are. We are dorks. No, we can't help it. And this one says by DNN01. What makes you think the Hulk would stop? Because he did, and he was tired. All right.
What the hell the guy is talking about?
See, I love it. This is from the same guy that told us.
So you were saying in some context that you don't remember that the Hulk would stop in this situation. Yeah. He would say enough is enough, and the viewer, the writer of that email is saying no.
You gotta understand our audience. They one time told us what was that? How to post?
They posted a comment on how do they upload a video long than 10 minutes?
They asked us.
Our video happened to be longer than 10 minutes. And then
so there you go. All right, let's forget about these guys. We don't even know why they write us.
Okay.
Thank you that they do. Okay, we're going to start with our top 3 comic cliffhangers. We'll start from number 3, then to number 1. You'll say your third, and I'll go my third, all the way through.
Okay.
And then we'll hold some honorable mentions. So, Tom, you start us off. Your third best comic cliffhanger that you recall.
You know, and again, we were talking about this before of like things that resonate with you. You know, you look at big issues in comic books and milestones, and this changed everything forever.
Right.
And with this topic, I realized that none of that applied with what was like a real cliffhanger to me. And most of these comics, I'm like, did something snap with me when I grew up where I didn't care about cliffhangers?
Right,
Were there no good cliffhangers anymore? But number 3 for me was Godzilla 12
from Marvel, right?
Marvel Comics, okay. Godzilla 12, Herb Trimpe did the artwork, and they're fighting the Mega Monsters. And it's Red Ronin is teaming up with Godzilla, and they're fighting these monsters from outer space. And they're from this bad planet. There was like a good planet that was like trying to defeat the Mega Monsters, and it lost or something like that. So these 3 monsters come down, and Godzilla and Red Ronin have to deal with it. And one of them is this big yellow monster that has like a sort of a clam head, and it flies around, and it's got like a helicopter blade. Really unique design to this monster. And the helicopter blade cuts off Red Ronin's head. Okay? So all of a sudden it's gone. And Godzilla, and there's 3 monsters left. And then the alien race shoots this beam down to make the Mega Monsters even bigger. So Godzilla and Red Ronin losing already. Yeah. Then Red Ronin's dead, and the monsters are twice as big as they used to be. And Godzilla's like looking up in the last panel at the 3 new giant Mega Monsters. That felt like, it wasn't 30 days until the next issue came out. It felt like about 3 years. That was like, it was worse than like, is Luke really Darth Vader's son? You know? It was like that level of, oh, gee, how's he going to get out of this? It was like, you look at storytelling and you say you want to take your heroes, you want to put them up and chase them up into a tree, and then shoot at them and start cutting the branches down. Yeah. That's what Godzilla 12 felt like to me.
Look at that, perfect.
Yeah, that's great.
My number 3. My brother used to have a bunch of comics like on his shelving in his room, and they were just all stacks of them. And this was in the mid '80s, and you couldn't really go to stores or anything because you're far away. You're a young kid. But I'll never forget X-Men 132, and it is a classic. It's one of the biggest cliffhangers of all time. But even when it hit me then, it was when he was fighting the Hellfire Club, and remember they knock him into the sewers, okay. And John Byrne they're looking for Wolverine, and he comes out of the water and he says, "You're taking your best shot, but now it's my turn." Yeah. And it's that legendary Wolverine picture. That was huge to me because Wolverine was already getting a little bit of attention. Like, he's that cool X-Men.
Right.
And so I was like, oh my God, they're finally going to he's going to go nuts on the Hellfire Club this next issue. I didn't see the next issue for a few years after either, too. But that was just, I know that's a legendary comic cliffhanger, but I didn't know that at the time, and it was
deserving of its reputation.
Yeah, it did, because I
wanted to hear people talk about, like,
but I didn't hear anybody
refer to good Wolverine.
Right.
That was always
absolutely. But the thing is, I never heard about Wolverine. I mean, I knew Wolverine, but you don't know. I didn't know he was huge at that time. But just looking through that thing, and I was like, oh my God, what's this next issue going to be like?
Yeah. Awesome. I mean, that often gets eclipsed by X-Men 136 to 137 with the death of Phoenix.
Yeah,
People always talk about the Days of Future Past.
Right.
Those 2 issues later, I mean, that 132 sort of gets lost in that.
Yeah, but 133, that was the actual issue that signified Wolverine as a mainstream. It was the first time he had kind of a little solo thing, and it kind of exploded him. And if you look at the popularity of Wolverine, it all resonates back to that issue. So the cliffhanger in 132 and then 133. All right, Dave Keymont.
All right.
Number 3.
Yeah, this was kind of a tough category for me because my memory is just awful and I can never quite remember all these different comic storylines that I grew up reading. I did read a bunch of comics when I was younger. But one of the ones that kind of stood out to me a little bit was, I was a big V for Vendetta fan. When it was coming out, and so issue 9, like I said, my memory's kind of, I can't even remember the inspector's name that was hunting him down, but when he finally tracks him down in issue 9 at the end, and he actually shoots him, and so he goes over and he sees that there's blood on the floor or whatever, and so you know that that he's just a human guy, and that he's gonna he screamed at this in the last panel, you're real and I killed you or something like that. But I really liked that because that was such a weird kind of clash between those 2 characters, because all up until then they never actually met. With a lot of other superhero stories and stuff, they've had battles in the past and whatever. They're aware of each other, but in this one, V was such a mysterious character that he kind of you really kind of latched on to him. But I always, even on the other hand, I liked the detective too. I kind of wanted him to find him, not just because I liked the character, but it was also it'll be a big reveal. So, that issue 9 kind of really stood out to me. Plus, I know a lot of people have either seen the movie or they've read the trade paperback.
So, yeah.
But I remember buying it month to month,
right,
and having to actually wait to see how it actually resolved itself.
Yeah, I never saw the movie. I never read it. I never. That was Alan Moore, right?
Yes,
yeah.
Alan Moore, David
Yeah, the
Boyd.
book is great.
Yeah.
Movie, yeah. It's all right.
All right, Keith, number 3.
All right. Much like Tom, I'm like with Cliffhanger. I mean, there's a million. Like we talked about this before we turned the camera on. You could go in a comic store right now. There's a million cliffhangers in each of the books.
Right.
But the ones that I want to talk about are the ones that like that you couldn't wait the 30 days that you needed to see the next one. So my third one, I'm going to go with Punisher Max. This was the Garth Ennis series. It's number 19. Now this was kind of like Garth Ennis did more of a realistic take on the Punisher, and in this storyline, there was this mobster he had caught. Was trying to kill him, and the guy got away, and this guy is revenge, and this is revealed at the end of the issue. Punisher's like eating or something, and he sends him a video. He puts the video in, and this guy had dug up his family's grave and urinated on all the bones. And the last panel was just the Punisher's face, and he's just like, "Oh my God, what is he gonna?" I mean, that's the core of the it's like, what is he gonna do next? And he just was like, "Oh my God, I cannot wait to see."
It's bad enough to have the Punisher coming at you when you're just a criminal,
but when you attack
him
like that, oh my God, when you attack him on that level, that's like a whole. I mean, that's a whole crazy, a whole nother level of crazy.
Wow, that's pretty cool.
So that one I really was like. Really
so don't leave us hanging. What happened? It is a great cliffhanger. I want to know.
Was there pissing in the?
All right, Tom. Number 2.
Number 2, again, really obscure. Marvel Team Up 63 to 64, which was Spider-Man teaming up with Iron Fist. And it was drawn by John Byrne, and they were fighting the Steel Serpent.
Yeah.
And at the end of the issue, the Steel Serpent is sort of fighting Iron Fist, and he looks like Iron Fist. He comes from the same background. He's got like a different colored uniform, but it's the same similar thing. And you've seen that sort of fight before, of someone who knows what the experience is. And he gets Iron Fist in this lock. And the artwork was just beautiful.
Of course, Byrne was doing great work in Marvel Team Up. That's when he was, I thought, at his prime.
Yeah, and this is I'm not sure if this must have come after Marvel Spotlight 15.
Yeah,
when
it
he was
did.
doing it.
Yeah,
where it fits in with the 1 to 15 of Iron Fist. But he's got Steel Serpent. Steel Serpent hooks him so that they're chest to chest.
Yeah.
and he steals his power.
Yeah, I
in front
remember
of him.
that. Yeah.
And like takes the iron, you know, and he's no longer Iron Fist, and he just collapses, and it's beautiful. And I'm like, whoa, boy, did I not see that coming. And like I like Iron Fist a lot, and like his power is gone, the thing that makes him unique and special. And I was like, I want him to get this power back now.
I like that. I like that.
That's a good one.
It got to me. So yeah, it was a powerful cliffhanger.
All right, my number 2, because Tom, you like the traditional superhero stories, like like it just seems like those, like that. I love those Marvel team-ups, all from that era and stuff, because they weren't that real. It was fantastic superhero stories, and they meant something to you as a kid. Today, that's like, all that's realism. It's just, I don't want to read how bad the economy's doing in the Marvel universe when I know it's doing bad.
Well, I mean, it's like, you think about this stuff, you're throwing the topic, and you got to sort of sort out, like, what matters to you. And I'm thinking of a lot of different sort of cliffhangers, but
ones that impacted you.
The ones that impacted
Yeah, they
personally.
like me. Total superhero story was Avengers 165 from 1977, and basically what it was I got this once again from my brother's collection because he had a whole bunch of stacks on his shelf, and I would go sift through his comics. But this was awesome because Count Nefaria basically got empowered. He became basically Superman. He got the power of Power Man, the Wizard. And I forget the other guy, but it was 100-fold. So he basically became, I call him the Clark Gable Superman because he had the mustache, the thing. And he just kicked the crap out of all the Avengers. I mean, it was like, and Jim Shooter wrote it, and he basically wrote it on the premise of Superman fighting the Avengers. So he killed everybody but Thor. Then finally at the end, he's ranting and raving. You guys, I'm beating up all these lower guys. Where's Thor? Where's Carrion? Thor, and all you see is thunder crack everywhere, like. And then he said, "Verily, thine hour of judgment hath come." And then you see Thor throwing his hammer, and you see Nefaria like, look, I'm getting goosebumps just talking about it. And it said, the next episode was Day of the Godslayer, and I was like, the rain is coming down. You see Nefaria, and he's throwing Milner at him, and I was just like, look, goosebumps right now, tears. When I read that is a superhero costume. And Nefaria is just like, holy moly, here's Thor. Yep. That is what I call a superhero cliffhanger. When I was a kid, I was like, and sure enough, my brother didn't have 166. What was it? 166. Yeah, that was 165. He didn't have 166. And it was like, holy moly. To this day, I have 5 copies of each comic. 163, 164, and 165. So I'll never be out of them. Because I was just like...
And today you bought one more copy of it.
There it is. That was just...
You should like a Jehovah's Witness or something and just go to people's doors and hand them out. Would you like to read these?
But it was just seriously. And you know who drew that? It was John Byrne too.
Yep.
Oh, awesome. Go ahead. Number 2, Dave.
All right, my number 2... let's see, like I like some of the superhero stuff like you guys did, but I was never super into it. I kind of really started to get into like the more mature titles and whatnot. But this is kind of like a cross between the two. It was Animal Man 25.
Okay, Keith,
Animal Man
that was the Grant Morrison.
Yes, that's the one. Throughout the first 25 issues, we get reintroduced to Animal Man. He goes through all these adventures and all these hardships and whatnot, and we're wrapping up the storyline as well as Grant Morrison's run. And Animal Man is going to this house where he thinks that he's gonna get the answer to all his questions and whatnot. Knocks on the door. The guy opens the door and he just says, "Hi, I'm Grant." And so I don't know if that's ever been done before, where a character got to meet his writer. But I remember reading that and going, "What the hell are they gonna do next month? Like, how is this gonna, it just totally just blew my doors off. I was like, what's gonna happen here?" And it was such an odd
Crack like
idea.
the fourth wall thing.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
But you've never seen that in comics.
Yeah, I don't know if it had been done before, or I don't know if it's been done since. Yeah. But when I read that, I didn't see it coming, and I really liked the way they wrapped it up, because it was basically, it had Grant Morrison talking to his character, but of course he's really talking to the audience and talking about all the things that he wanted to say in the series and why he's leaving and blah blah blah. But all the while he's also talking to the character and basically telling him, "Oh yeah, I'm just controlling your life. Everything you feel, I'll kill your kids or whatever, and I'll bring them back. It doesn't matter. I do it on a whim." And the character's like, no, I'm real. You're not really doing this to me. He's like, yeah, see, I just made you get all upset, And it's like, it was just such a bizarre, but it was kind of a poignant issue as well. So, yeah, when he opened that door and said, I'm Grant, I was like, all right, I gotta read this.
Yeah. All right, Keith, number 2.
Mine was number 2. I was gonna go with Spider-Man, but I'm going with one of the cliffhangers that I was like, whoa, I gotta see the next one, was when Straczynski first took the book over
What, of Amazing Spider-Man?
Yeah, before he turned that into a disaster. His early run on that, I think it was like 35, and he was like 5 issues into his run when Spider-Man had to fight that huge battle with this character called Morlun, who's supposed to be...
Is that the one that ripped out his eye?
Yeah.
Pulled out his eye? He beat the crap out of him really bad, right?
Yeah. And, he was supposed to die in this battle, so basically he beat him finally. And he's so exhausted. The issue ends with him going home, so exhausted, just destroyed from this battle. And he falls asleep, and Aunt May opens the door, and he's in bed, and there's the Spider-Man costume on the floor.
And he's all in the bandages.
Yeah, he's all in the bandages.
John Romita Jr. drew it. Yeah.
And you're just like, oh my god! She knows. Like, how does he get out? How does he get out of this?
Oh, and you were a little older reading that.
Yeah,
stuff,
and I was like, no. But then the way he wrote it after the whole next issue was them talking, and it's so good.
Oh,
it was really well done. Yeah.
But I remember that.
And they undid it all a few years later with the Brand New Day crap. But
it caught me.
That was a big deal. Like Aunt May finding out that he's Spider-Man. That was after all these years, and that was just like
Keith was always a big Spider-Man fan. If Keith couldn't be a superhero, he'd be Spider-Man. Too bad he couldn't fit the suit.
So that's my number 2.
Not even this one.
The Masquerade.
All right, number 1.
Number 1,
Tom Franck.
Gave me nightmares.
Wow.
Really gave me nightmares for a long time. And it was Fantastic Four 188, where they're fighting the Molecule Man.
Oh, okay. And that was Sinnott was inking that one too. That was
it was Molecule Man and this other
John Buscema.
This other villain who was red and had a fist, and he was sort of fighting against the Molecule Man. So the Fantastic Four are fighting the Molecule Man for the whole issue, and they finally beat him. And the Molecule Man's wand drops, and they're all this power in this little wand, and Reed Richards picks it up.
Yes.
He picks up the wand.
I do remember that.
So they've been fighting the Molecule Man. Tough fight, but they finally beat him. And then all of a sudden, not only is the Molecule Man, all the danger is immediately back, but it's 1,000,000 times worse than it's Reed Richards now.
Yeah.
And you don't know, is he he is stretching power as the Molecule Man? Is he as smart as Reed Richards now? It just seemed like, wow, are they Schitt's Creek?
Yeah.
And issue 189, not that great, in how it all played out.
Yeah.
But just the idea of, that was Reed Richards is the Molecule Man, and it's scary. They draw all these jagged lines on his face.
They have I remember. I saw that issue in a barber shop. All right. I didn't get to read. I first read this in Marvel's Greatest Superhero Battles, which was the paperback. Sure. Was Fantastic Four 25. The Hulk versus the Thing. I was really young. That was the first time I saw the cover. I remember the first time I saw the cover, it blew my mind because the Jack Kirby art, the Hulk over the Thing fighting them.
Right, and then in 26, it's the half-built building.
Yeah, on the girders, the Hulk's fighting the Avengers. But when I was young and I was looking through that, I remember thinking it was like a Grover Cronin. I don't know if you guys remember that Wall Family. But anyways, I was looking through Marvel's Greatest Superheroes Battle. I'm looking at it, and then the Hulk beats the crap out of the Thing. But you see the Thing get up. And he goes, and he says that the only way he's going to stop me is if he kills me. He couldn't believe the Hulk beat him, and then you just see him running back at him. And you just see him running back, and he's running toward you in the panel. And I remember being a kid. And that was the first time I really looked at Jack Kirby art and all that stuff. But it was like when I listened to like the Doors for the first time. It was some sort of spiritual awakening within. I looked at that, and even as a little kid, I must have been 5 years old. And I was like, this is the greatest thing I have ever seen up to this point. I could barely read, but I could read what the thing said, and just the art. This is the greatest thing I have ever seen up to this point. I could barely read, but I could read what the thing said, and just the art and everything. It just was like, what is going to happen next? And like for me, that was just everything. Just from and I know that is one of the biggest cliffhangers in comics too. That was such a legendary issue. But as a little kid, I felt it because I didn't know anything about Kirby, didn't know anything, and it was just like, he's going to go back. Like the thing's going to go back. He just got killed. He's gonna, and that was the essence of the thing, the character. But I felt it. Look, I could cry right now. I felt it as a kid. All right, Keymont, number 1.
All right, so I feel a little lame picking this one since it's.
No, come on, it's all for the love.
Well, it's because it's one of like the big events, the big gimmick. But
it meant something to you.
It happened right at the height of when I was really collecting comics, and I'm gonna go with Batman 427. The death of Jason Todd issue.
Oh, yeah, that's a big one.
So there was the big cliffhanger, and you had to call in. They had.
Did you call in?
No, I actually didn't. I didn't.
That's where the Joker beats him with the crowbar.
Yeah, and it's funny because I remember even at the time thinking like, I don't really care if Jason Todd lives or dies. I was kind of more curious to see how the people were going to vote. I don't know why, but for whatever the reason, that seemed like the more interesting thing to me.
And then you wanted to see what happened the next issue, what they voted for. Yeah, that was during the 90s, though, right? That was like
it was 92 or something like that.
By that time, because I've been in comics for so many years, it was already a cliche thing for me. It was, I'm just saying, you were new to it, but I mean, it was like they were killing, a lot of that stuff already happened, and then they kind of brought back. It was still basically new.
But getting the fans involved like that,
that was interesting.
That before.
That actually would. Skew it, like whether it would happen and stuff. But that's a good one.
All right, so Keith, number 1.
So number 1, I have to go with Garth Ennis again. I'm gonna go Preacher, number 10. If anyone had ever read Preacher,
I've read it, but I don't remember it.
Well, Preacher, I was reading month to month, so that, like you said, look at the trade, it doesn't make much difference. But when month to month, it just. But the reason this cliffhanger, because the Vertigo comics were always sort of. When you read the stories, you didn't view them like superhero stories where everyone came back from the dead.
Right.
It's more built on like a level of realism. So in the issue, Jesse Cuss' white trash family, the ones that forced him to become a preacher, and they realize his girlfriend is the one keeping him from God and all this stuff. So the very last panel of this issue, they take a gun and put it right up to her head and blow her away right in front of him. And his face is just like, oh my God. And then waiting that month to see what the hell was going to happen was just, oh my God. You ever read Preacher? Incredible run. Yeah. But waiting that 30 days from that point to the next one was just, And like you were saying earlier on like the Fantastic Four, the resolution wasn't, that great, but it was just...
The hype for it. The anticipation for it.
The anticipation was the greatest thing. So that's my number 1.
Anyone got some honorable mentions? I'm going to throw one out there really quick. I remember a Thor one, Alone Against the Celestials. I think it was 387, 388, and 389, if I'm correct. But once again, a superhero story to the max, where Thor is basically floating adrift through space, and he knows it's hurting him, so he needs to get onto a planet. So he lands on a planet, and he's knocked out because he throws him in there, and he just goes with him. So anyways, what's going on in this planet when he wakes up is that this planet is an absolute chaos, and it looks like the Celestials, and Ashiam the judge has his thumb down. So basically what the Celestials come to do is they come to the planet and they'll judge if it's fit to keep going. They do all these little experiments on it, and then the judge comes in and he'll either go thumb up, thumb down. So basically it's the thumb down. So Thor doesn't know this at the time. He just knows the whole thing is in disarray. People are trying to leave the planet. It's just crazy. And they're looking at Thor. And Thor's just saying, like, I don't know these people. I don't know. It's a corrupt planet. He goes, but it's my obligation to protect them. So he puts on his armor. He gets the strength on. He gets his hammer and he goes to fight Ashiam. And anyways, he's doing everything to Ashiam. He can't even dent him. And then it ends. The first issue ends unbelievably, like, he's like, well, what do I do? And then all of a sudden, Ashim is like over 2,000 feet tall. And then next to him, you see this huge foot. And it's Elixir the Exterminator. Because he's the guy that comes and destroys the planet. And you just see Thor. The panel, they put it on a two-page splash. You just see Thor looking, oh my God, he's looking up to Ashim. And then he looks up even further. It's just, he's like, how do I stop that? That was incredible. But then the end of the second issue was awesome too, because through all this, he's trying to stop them. He can't do it. And he actually uses the belt of strength. And he puts it around Mjolnir, and he shoots, and the hammer collapses. It all becomes in pieces. So basically, he can't do anything, and now more stuff is attacking him, and he's just like, you know what, I promised this planet that I'm going to protect them. So you see him, he's all in scraps. He goes at this huge army that's coming at him, and he's like, screw it, I'm going after him. And he's fighting with just the stem of Mjolnir. And when those two issues, it was just like, wow! It fit essence of Sewer. It was great. No. That was after Sunset. It was Ron Friends drew it, Joe Sinnott inks, and it was Tom DeFalco of all people wrote that.
What issue was it?
387, 388, 389, and it was those three issues were just cliffhanger after cliffhanger. You were just like, oh. Dave, you got one?
Well, this one might be a bit of a cheat because I don't really know how much of a cliffhanger it is, but did anybody read Big Numbers by Alan Moore and Bill Sienkiewicz?
I've heard of it. I never read it.
It was a 12-issue series that actually they canceled after 2 issues. So basically, yeah, I mean, really? I've heard of some series getting canceled, but a limited series, you can't even put out the whole series. It was supposed to be about this town in England and all the people. It's like a small town, but basically they were gonna like delve into like all the secrets that all the people in this town had, and it was an oversized book, and they did issue 1 and they did issue 2, and then I don't know what happened, but never issue 3 after waiting 20 years. And this was like they're at the height of their prime, you know, 2 of my favorite writers and artists, and I didn't actually have time to read up on it before coming here, but so I don't know exactly why they never finished it, but yeah, come on, get on it, guys, I'm waiting still.
I got one that's similar to that. There was a comic book of The Incredibles that Boom Studios did.
Oh, okay.
It was pretty good, and it ran for 15 issues. And in issue 15, like, things are going really bad for The Incredibles, and there's some villain who he's got some long-range scheme that's working out, and, like, public opinion is against The Incredibles, and then he says, isn't that right, Everseer? And you see the brain of Everseer is in this jar. And Everseer was one of the heroes in the movie The Incredibles that died during the development of the Omnidroid.
Okay.
So, you know, and they talk about Everseer a lot, but it's just like, okay, so they're using the brain of this hero that has fallen to manipulate the Incredibles, and it's working. Like, whatever sort of clairvoyance thing he's got, it's the real deal. And this scheme is showing them ahead of the Incredible. You know, you got some things, the heroes are winning versus the bad guys are winning. And then Disney bought Pixar, and they didn't want to continue it.
Oh, that's the worst.
It's awful.
The only honorable mention I could think of that was a good one that almost made my list was Watchmen.
I can agree.
Good one.
I can agree.
When the last panel is revealed that Ozymandias won, and you know he's like, you know, my clan's already was released an hour ago or something.
I can agree with
when they get to him finally.
When I was a kid and I was reading Watchmen for the first time, I remember seeing it on the shelves, but I never cared to get it. But somebody gave me the paperback and I read it. I remember that's the only comic.
We got some issues today.
I remember I was the only person. There's the only comic ever that I would wake up in the middle of the night and had to keep going. Like, I would be so tired, I'd be like, but what's going to happen next? And I went back to it, and I kept going. But that had cliffhanger after cliffhanger after cliffhanger.
That was a good series.
So, everybody, those are our famous cliffhangers. Maybe you like them, maybe you don't. Let us know, and then, hey, tell us yours. But remember, a good comic book always has a good cliffhanger. And I think a good comic book was one of those older ones. Today, I don't know. They're all going to come back. So, hey.
We shouldn't have told them all our cliffhanger. We should have made them wait for the next.
Don't worry, Dave. Nobody's listening to this anyway.
In my day, we read cliffhanger comic books uphill.
So, hey, give me a how good?
So good.